Jaya Prabhuji. Hello, welcome to the Retroprogressive Yoga Institute. My name is Swami Omkarananda. I am a disciple of Prabhuji since 1997, and in this institute the disciples of Prabhuji share their own reflections on the teachings of Prabhuji. In this particular course, this is the second course I'm doing on the Tantra, Liberation in the World. This is an amazing book that I really recommend, in which Prabhuji shares the wisdom of the Tantric revelation and how this path enriched his own search and how it became an important component of the retroprogressive yoga. That is the way he called his teachings. In the first course that I recommend to watch before this one, we talked about the vision, the Tantric vision. This is how Prabhuji chose to start the book, giving the general approach, the very fresh breeze that this revelation brought, and how we can benefit from the way the Tantrikas saw the world, the relationship with the divine, what as humans we should do in order to fulfill and realize ourselves. But Tantra is something very complex, and therefore Prabhuji didn't save us the opportunity to go deeper into this complexity, and this is the second course. So I will assume that if you reach here, you're interested in more the nitty-gritty of this revelation, and Prabhuji gives us a lot of information. But always it's important to keep the spirit. In which spirit? In the retroprogressive spirit, we will go into the details of the Tantra. Of course, Tantra is not one approach, it's many. And also, this book is not for beginners. I want to warn you. Although everybody can read it, but the book assumes that you already read previous books of Prabhuji, that you know the basics of the Vedic revelation, and then you will be able to appreciate the new approach of the Tantra. And because I know that not everybody is so knowledgeable, and some want actually to enter into the Eastern wisdom through the Tantra, so in this course I will give the basics with the hope that it will help you to understand further what Prabhuji shares. So let's delve into the origins and development of the Tantric revelation. Now let's imagine that we have a bowl full of apples. If we want to categorize these apples, which categories will we choose? We can categorize them by color, we can categorize them by size, maybe by the location in the bowl, maybe by chronological order in which they become ripe and we took them from the tree, maybe by the combination of colors that they have, but maybe we might categorize them by the taste. When we come to organize the Tantric revelation, we are doing something similar. But the invitation of this revelation is not to sort them, but to taste it. And it's surprising how much many are ready to deal with the sorting and how few are ready to taste. I ask myself this question: why it's so difficult to take one apple and taste it? And why it's so attractive to organize them and categorize them? The Tantra can be categorized them in many ways. And this is what adds to the complexity. And in this book, Prabhuji categorized them by different parameters, when the fact is that all the pearls of wisdom coexist at the same time. And yet we will find a division by chronology, by deity, by scripture, by disciplic succession, by approach. There are many ways to categorize and try to grasp what is this Tantric miracle. But what about tasting it? I found in my search many scholars that they are dealing with this and are categorizing with amazing research. I found very few that ever taste an apple. And I ask myself why I am not tasting the apple. Why I'm also busy with sorting it and learning this and categorizing, but what about taste? What prevents from you to taste? If you are interested in apples, and I will assume that you are because you're listening to this lecture, means that we have certain attraction for it. And this attraction is maybe the first step towards tasting it. And the more we deal with these apples, even just to sort them and to analyze them and to measure them, the more closer we might get to dare to taste one. But the jump from studying about apples to tasting an apple is tremendous. And furthermore, if we read descriptions of people that tasted apples, and those are the Tantric scriptures, we might feel satisfied and we might think that I know what they're talking about. But let's not forget that there is an abyss of distance between reading the descriptions, dealing and categorizing apples, and tasting one. The invitation of the rishis when they describe how the taste of an apple, it was not just to tell you about their experience, but to tempt you to taste one. What might prevent us from doing that? This you need to ask yourself. The retroprogressive is not a path of answers. It's a path of questioning. And I think this is a fascinating question. And although I'm dealing many years with this question, I still think that there is so much to discover. I can just share some of what I see. When we are looking for a spiritual development, revelation, experience, whatever you're looking for, wisdom, understanding, we might still think that we are going to experience enlightenment, mystical powers, whatever your heart is calling to. And the point is that it's not going to be something that I experience. And if we want really the direct experience of the taste of wisdom, it's not going to happen to us. We are now dealing with this identification of me, myself, as the subject, and the wisdom, the experience, as the object. And we are in a division. Prabhuji says again and again that it's not something that's going to happen to you. It will happen in the moment of your disappearance as a separate entity, as an identification, as a conditioning, as a mind. Then the revelation will happen, and then you will know directly the taste of an apple. But all the spiritual path actually doesn't deal with adding to you information, but to removing the barriers that divide you from yourself. And what is that? That is the ego. The ego we learn in the first course more about the desires, the conditioning, the identification, and all the purpose of the teachings of Tantra is not some philosophical speculation, but a very practical way to crush the ego. And if you go for Tantra, and whoever went for Tantra, they were the serious seekers that said enough is enough. I don't want to be spiritual, I want to disappear. I don't want to know, I want to taste. and the adventurers really, that they break the rules, they break the conventional agreement of what is to be religious, and they went into a very esoteric unknown. Whenever they initiated into this wisdom, they didn't know what is the wisdom about because it was esoteric and secret. So they took a very big leap towards the unknown, and only by doing that they already got so much closer to the taste. Whatever prevents from us to taste it is the fear of the unknown, is the cancellation of ourselves, the disappearance of ourselves. We hold so tight to our separate existence that the price of the experience is our identification. Kali is a tantric goddess that is, she's decorated with skulls, and she has in her hand a decapitated head of a devotee. And this is a symbolism for the price we need to pay for a direct experience. It needs to pay with your own head. This is the seriousness that this path demands. So now that we are going to deal with categorizing apples, let's not forget that the real benefit of doing it, maybe we will feel satisfied by categorizing, but the real benefit is to taste it. And if to categorize and deal with it and study, it brings me closer to daring to taste one, so this will be very beneficial. If this study, it keeps me in with the feeling that I know how does it taste, because I read the description, because I study. So this is not the approach of the retroprogressive. And if Prabhuji wants to share with us this tons of information, really, this book is full of information, is to see how beautiful the descriptions of the different seers that tasted describe this taste. And with so many angles and so many temptations, so I hope that this will push us to taste ourselves. In order to reach a deeper understanding of the Tantric revelation, it will be important to understand the context in which it emerged. For that, I will dedicate the following classes to explain the differences between the Vedic and the Tantric revelation that took place in parallel. And then, from within the Tantric revelation, we find the two approaches, the right hand approach and the left hand. Each one of those have worship to different deities. This is how we find the Vaishnavism, the Shaivism, and the Shaktism. So in this class, we will start by understanding the differences between Veda and Tantra. We will compare this revelation in the following aspects. In the first part, we will deal with the different origins, scriptures, deities, and doctrine. And in the second part, the rituals, the practice, the mantras, and the social orientation. So let's get started. 1. Origin. Prabhuji writes in his book, we find two parallel revelations within Hinduism, the Vedic, and the Tantric. Rather than contradicting each other, these are two approaches to the same truth. The first is Brahmanical and is based on the Vedas, while the second is based on the Agamas, sacred tantric texts considered to be divine revelations and the very voice of God, or Apta Vakya. Scholars debate about the origins of the Tantra, and there are different hypotheses. There are very few really evidences, so we need to reconstruct this unfoldment with a few clues that survive the time. Prabhuji is very clear about his position. he says those are two parallel revelations, both authoritative. Some scholars says that the original revelation was the Tantra, and with time this oral tradition was lost, and then the Vedic tradition emerged. Some says that the Vedic is the first one, and afterwards develop the Tantra. But what we need to understand is that those are oral traditions originally. So they were transmitted for generations, we don't know how many, up until they put in writing. So the first written evidence of the Tantric revelation we find in the 5th century of the current era. But doesn't say that this is really the origin of the revelation, and that's what we find really clues of this revelation, of this attitude before. Also, the origin of them. There are some scholars that says that the Vedas origin from the north, from the Aryan tribes, and the Tantra is a southern development, and it's more Dravidian. This is one theory. And some said that Tantra was enriched from knowledge out of this area from different tribes. So there are many theories, and you need to understand that history is not really a narrative of the facts, but just of the hypothesis of what we can reconstruct with the evidence that we get. And more evidence actually are fortifying the position of Prabhuji that those revelations existed from the beginning and they were developing in parallel. Now, with time, the Vedic ritual system was declining, and currently the Tantra is predominant. But they're so intermingled, both revelations, that it's even in order to assign an origin, we need to be able to really separate between them. And the fact is that they really merge into one big system. So the current and overall belief is that those two giant corpus of scriptures and knowledge were both part of the big and huge spiritual system. In this class, we are going to present similarities and differences between the Veda and the Tantra. The Veda is called Nigama, of final truth or conclusion. The Tantra is called Agama, that which has come to us. The Veda was revealed to seers in deep meditation. The Tantra was revealed by Shiva, and when he is the bestower of the wisdom, it's called Agama. But the scriptures that were revealed by Shakti, by the goddess, the most secret and direct teachings, those are called also Nigama. Both are revealed knowledge, both are authoritative. Both systems originate in oral tradition and later they were put in writing. Both pursue the same ultimate goal, which is liberation. The Hindu scriptures are classified by different hierarchy, which are more authoritative than others. And there are many debates on which one is more authoritative, the Vedas or the Tantras. And for that, for understanding that debate, we need to understand more the structure of the Hindu scriptures. And this is what we are going to learn now. 2. Scriptures. Prabhuji brings this verse. Shrutis chad vibha Vaidiki Tantriki cha. The Vedic and the Tantric path are known as two kinds of Shruti. This is a commentary on the Manusmriti by Kuluka Bhatta. This is a very important thing, and in order to understand better, we need to understand what is Shruti. That's why I said that Prabhuji assumes that you understand the importance of considering Tantra a Shruti. But in this class, we will explain it further. What is the Shruti and what is the Smriti? The sacred scriptures of the Sanatana Dharma can be divided in two, the Shruti and the Smriti. Shruti are the scriptures which were heard by the rishis. Smriti were the scriptures which are remembered, that the sages remembered the teachings. The Shruti is authorless. It's just a revelation. It's what is the revelation? It's the divine revelation. It's not written by someone. The Smriti has an author, a sage, a rigi, a master that wrote this scripture. The Shruti describe the direct experience of the truth, but Smriti are text-edited writings that teach about spirituality. Shruti are considered eternal. It's true forever, and it's not written at certain point, but it was heard at certain point and reached to us, but it's eternal wisdom. Smriti is temporary. It's maybe relevant for this time and age, but it's not eternal. It was revealed at certain point. Shruti are divine instructions. Smriti are usually divine dialogues that teach us, that were heard, remembered by the sages, and they teach us spiritual wisdom. Shruti, it was divinely inspired. And the Smriti, those are human reflections, human thoughts, conclusions, teachings that, of course, are meant to help us to reach the level of the revelation. The Shrutis are the Vedas, the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, and Atharva Veda. This is what is considered the proper and direct revelation, divine revelation. Under the Smriti, which is the tradition, very important scripture as well, but we can find the Dharma Shastras, we can find the Puranas, the Vedangas, the Upavedas, the epics, and all the scripture related to the Darshanas. So now the question is under which category we put the Agamas, the scriptures of the Tantric revelation. Are those divinely inspired revealed teachings, or those are Smritis, teachings from masters? Now there are different positions towards this, but the verse that we write, and also the position of Prabhuji taught in this book, is that the Agamas are part of the Shruti. Agamas are divinely inspired, they are authoritative, they are authorless, and they are the opening of the direct experience. If we analyze the structure of the Vedas in front of the Tantras, both have a similar structure. The difference between them is that they put emphasis in different things. The Vedas put the emphasis on the rituals and the knowledge. The Tantras also deal a lot with the rituals, but put the emphasis in the practice. If we see the four components and sections of the Vedas, we find the Samhitas, the Brahmanas, the Aranyakas, and the Upanishads. If we take the four sections of the Tantra, we find the Charya, Kriya, Yoga, and Jnana. The Samhitas are hymns of praise to the Vedic gods and goddesses. The Charya speak about the code of conduct. The Brahmanas are the rituals and prayers. And in front of it we find the Kriya, which are also dealing with the Tantric rituals and prayers. The Aranyakas are basically instructions of worship and meditations. And we find the section of the yoga in the Tantras, which deal with also meditation, physical practice and mental. In the fourth section, the Upanishad, that deal with the philosophy and wisdom, we find in parallel the Jnana, the philosophy and wisdom section of the Tantras. So we can find a very clear parallel between them, although they emphasize different aspects. 3. Deities. Prabhuji writes, Tantra's sacred wisdom was preserved through chains of disciplic succession or paramparas, which originated from the Tantric deities. This distinguishes Tantric lineages from Vedic and Smriti's one. The Tantric seers or rishis transmitting their transcendental experience for the benefit of humanity. So we see here how Prabhuji explains that the difference between the systems is actually the origin of the disciplic succession. And the deities, the Tantric deities, are those who revealed this wisdom. So let's understand what he means by Tantric deities and make the differentiation between the Vedic and the Tantric deities. The main Vedic deities that appear the most in the different hymns of the Vedas are related to nature. We find Indra and Vayu, which are related to lightning, Agni to fire, Soma to the moon, Surya to the sun, and then we have the worship of Ishvara, the supreme god. Now we have also the worship of Rudra. Rudra is considered to be the Vedic version of Shiva, that Shiva is the later development and become a tantric god. We find Vishnu in the worship, in the Vedic worship, and we have different goddesses that, although they are less prominent in this worship, but we find Aditi or Usha, Saraswati, and Prithvi, which is the Mother Earth. And of course, we have in the Upanishad the concept of Brahman, that is the absolute, the formless, the God without qualities. What are the Tantric deities? Mainly, we have Shiva. Shiva is the origin of the Tantric revelation, is the pure consciousness, is the origin. From the worship of Shiva, all this revelation emerged. We have, of course, the worship of Shakti, that is his consort and the divine mother of the universe. We have a very prominent stream of Vishnu, of Vaishnavism with the Tantric revelation. And we have the Surya and the Ganesha, which are two Tantric streams that they didn't survive over time, but they had their own scriptures and ritual system. Again, we see here that there are many similarities but different emphasis. The Vedic worship emphasized nature, but still we find Rudra, which is the deity, a Vedic deity that later took the form of Shiva, and we have Tantric cults that worship Rudra, and we will learn that later on. So we find the seed of Tantra within the Vedic pantheon. Then we have the female deities in the Vedic pantheon that, although they were not prominent, but they are present, and the earth is the Mother Earth that is worshipped, and the consorts of the male deities, we find them in the Vedas. But the emphasis in the Tantra, it was the worship of the divine goddess. This is the development that went through this Tantric revelation, starting from the origin, the Vedic origin of a male type of worship, but achieving their highest expression in the Shakti, in worshipping the power of Shiva, the energy of Shiva. So it's a worship that emphasizes the energetic aspect of the divine. 4. Doctrine. Prabhuji writes, in the search for the whole, Tantra does not reject the part. Its holistic wisdom invites us to discover the macro by observing the micro, the eternal through the temporal, the one through diversity, the ocean through a drop of water, the whole through the individual. It finds the transcendental within this world. How amazing, how close, how the apple is brought so close to the mouth. Just taste it. This is a tantric invitation. Don't go and think about the afterlife, the words, the eternity. In your temporality, in your imperfection, in your individuality, search, because you are divine, and you will find the ocean in the drop that you are. You have a drop of awareness. Nothing, how much you can be aware, but the awareness in quality has the same awareness of the whole. So focus on your consciousness. You have the drop of divinity is operating you, your body, your desires, your ability to act. What do you think that you're something separate? From where this idea, trace this idea. This is really what you thought when you just arrived to the world? Could you put a difference between you and everything else? We are grow into this forgetfulness. We were convinced that we're an individual. And in this state of individuality, a state of disconnection is an unbearable suffering. So much we suffer that we try to forget this suffering with escapes and worldly engagements. But the Tantra said, you know what? This is what you are busy with the world. I will meet you there. Let's meet there. All what I ask is just be present. That's a lot to ask. Just be present. Whatever you do, you know what? Follow your desires. Be present. Go to your escapes. Be present. If you are present, there will not be escapes. You will find there, in the drop, in the whole, in the small, in the micro, in yourself. There you will find everything that you look for. And you don't need to give up anything. You don't need to give up the world. You don't need to wait for any future. Whatever is not in the present will not be in the future. The Tantra invites you to give up this hope that is not hope, is an escape, is an excuse. Just celebrate the fact that you are aware, that you are alive, and relax and taste. That's all the invitation. And believe me, the Tantra had so many tools to push you to taste from the very beginning, from the very initiation. It is said that some people were very afraid to go into Tantra because, in a way, there is no way back. Once you know, you cannot unknow what you already know. When you see, you cannot unsee what you already see. So the powers that the Tantrics were dealing with were scary. Scary if you really want to keep your separation. For that is scary. For the ego is scary. But this path doesn't tell you, you need to restrain yourself. You need to develop austerities. All the things that you can say, no, that's not for me. Tantra is for everyone, because it's for whatever you are, in which caste you were born, in which inclination you have, in which addiction you have. All that Tantra says is just be present. And when you are present, you are in your nature, in the awareness of what you are. And you will find, if you are not afraid to go inwards, you will find. You know what? Let's get back to the question, why we don't taste. Maybe the same question is why it's difficult for us to look at ourselves in the mirror. Why it's difficult for us to close our eyes and be with our thought. Why it's difficult for us to be alone. Those are the same question why we don't taste. There is some disappearance in this, in the taste. And all our animalistic nature shouts in the moment that it feels threatened. And spirituality threatens our animal because it's to go beyond the animal. And the animal in us, it's meant to defend our separation. This is nature. Nature is like this. Shakti's nature is to defend this separation. But this path is to say, okay, we are in the peak of the separation. We cannot be more separate. We don't remember anything. Everything was forgotten. We don't find the way. We are lost here in this temporal existence without knowing what's going to be. There, in the peak of the forgetfulness, we can turn very easy and find a way back. The retroprogressive way, is wherever you are, be present. Notice, pay attention. Instead of paying attention to the experience, pay attention to the one who experiences, to the presence that is witnessing all the experience. That present is you, and if you are brave to taste, you will see that it's more you than the present. So the Tantra invites you to look into what is here and now in this moment, and there everything will be found. Let's compare the doctrine of Veda and Tantra. Veda is more contemplative, while Tantra is a celebration. It embraces the enjoyment. The Veda is a life-denying path, while Tantra is a life-affirming path. The Veda is more inward focused, and Tantra is outgoing and vibrant. Veda is more an idealistic approach. It deals more with the level of the mind. But Tantra is a very practical approach. It leads in the level of the energy, of the body, of this world. Both systems went through a very interesting process of going from dualism to non-dualism. We see the Samhitas were worship of Vedic deities, but the culmination of the Vedic wisdom are the Upanishads, that they deal with the absolute, non-qualified, absolute Brahman. The Tantra went through a similar development. It started from dualistic sects and approach and types of rituals, from worshipping either Shiva, later worshipping Shakti, but in the culmination, worshipping the merge of Shiva and Shakti as one. So it started as a dualistic type of practice and culminates in non-dualism. Prabhuji writes, for Tantra, everything is divine. It accepts the diverse aspects of our reality and tries to purify them. It does not reject this world for the next one, nor does it renounce happiness here for happiness in the hereafter. As expressed in this verse, there is no other path like that of Tantra, which is the cause of liberation and realization of happiness, both in this world and the next. Mahanirvana Tantra 2.20. Prabhuji called his book Liberation in the World, and we can see here the approach of Tantra. The happiness needs to happen in the world, not when we leave the body. There are many spiritual paths, including Vedas, that believe that liberation can happen only when we exhaust our karma, meaning that we leave our body. How we can be liberated while being trapped in the body, while our consciousness is trapped, how it will merge. But the Tantra brings a very sophisticated system of going and remerging with our source and then descending to bring and shine in consciousness here. That's why the Tantrikas are lovers of life. They celebrate life. They outward. They are vibrant. They are eating this because this experience of duality is also divine. It's not a punishment. If you are with the correct awareness and you can look from the point of view of the observer, so you will enjoy this movie deeply. But if you are very identified with the plot of the movie, you might suffer when the character suffers. But while being aware that this is a movie, you can easily go into the world, into this dimension, and enjoy whatever it happened, good or bad, because the happiness will be found here. And, knowing that you are eternal, untouchable, unchanging, that you are awareness, So you are not affected by whatever happened. But this doesn't prevent from you to enjoy whatever happens. It's said, there is this belief that if somebody is liberated, so it's completely oblivious to what is in the world, and it's indifferent and apathic to any enjoyment. I can testify from witnessing Prabhuji that life is a celebration for that one who knows it's like the self manifests through this. The self created this limitation. We will study in later courses how one of the energies of Shiva is the concealment of awareness, of consciousness. So he concealed consciousness. It's not by chance that we are divine, we are aware, and still somehow we believe to be this body. And it's a divine plan. But there is the anugraha, the grace of Shiva, that he will one day just unveil his nature. Then it will be the moment of the awakening. And what we are doing here, we're just playing and organizing and studying and exploring the apples until one day the apple will be so tempting. It will be stronger than my rejection, and I will be so curious to taste that I will not be able to resist. And I know that in this temptation I will die, I will disappear, but the apple becomes more important than me. By the tantric practice, my self-importance, my separation, my impurities, my ignorance goes, hopefully, and decline, and the direct experience is more and more calling us until we cannot resist and we fall into it. So the Tantra, you can see, comes from the mother Vedas, but it brings the divinity so close, so reachable, that it's just bringing us the apple very, very close, just to open the mouth and taste. And this is what the masters do when they initiate, when they transfer, that they give you a little bit, one drop to taste and open your appetite for the disappearance, for the direct experience, for the awakening. So we can only be grateful to the masters that share with us the taste of an apple, and for Prabhuji that with every movement is inviting us to taste ourselves. So we will continue in the next class studying the differences between the Vedas and the Tantras. Thank you very much. Jaya Prabhuji.